Days of Our Lives spoilers reveal that fans may now have questions about Nicole Walker and Eric Brady's romantic status. DiMera hinted about trouble in paradise. But what does that really mean for the popular duo? Duo fans will recall that Eric, Nicole, and Jude Brady have been living in Paris. However, Eric just returned to Salem to visit John Black in the hospital and support Marlena Evans. Of course, that gave Eric a chance to run into EJ in the town square, where EJ asked about Jude and Nicole. When Eric pointed out that Nicole and Jude didn't make this trip, EJ had some interesting comments. Odd. Do I sense trouble in paradise? EJ asked in Day's May 30 episode. Eric was clearly annoyed and chose not to respond to the question. Instead, Eric suggested he didn't have time for this and dashed off to the hospital soon after. The conversation was intriguing and perhaps left some Days viewers wondering if there was any truth to EJ's speculation. Could there indeed be some trouble in paradise for Nicole and Eric? It's possible that Eric and Nicole broke up or that they've been having issues. Eric didn't mention anything during his catch-up sessions with his loved ones later, but the timing wouldn't have been right for that anyway due to John's ordeal. That said, Eric happily showed off a video of little Jude and honestly didn't seem troubled about anything in his personal life. This may have just been a case of EJ trying to get under Eric's skin and Eric not giving him the satisfaction of a real response. Eric is only back for a temporary day's stint, so there's no real reason to split him up from Nicole right now. It'd be better to keep Eric in a blissful romance when he goes off-screen again. It seems likely Nicole and Eric are still going strong as a couple despite EJ's suggestion that there were problems between them. If any other news emerges about Eric and Nicole's romantic status, we'll be sure to pass along updates. Days of Our Lives spoilers say Eric has more family scenes ahead as John's exit storyline heats up, so stay tuned. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Monday, June 2. As the end draws near for John, Marlena remains by her true love side. Meanwhile, as they reconcile themselves to the devastating loss about to take place, Steve and Kayla take a walk down memory lane. In another hospital, Hope, Sean and Sierra gather around Bo, who is able to reunite with Zach. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Tuesday, June 3. It's a sad day in Salem as residents learn about John's death and grieve his loss. Not surprisingly, Marlena breaks down under the enormous emotional pressure of having lost the love of her life. Kristen confides in Brady. Belle is likely in need of support, and yet she finds herself pulling away from EJ. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Wednesday, June 4. Even as John's death is still being processed by many, Bo's loved ones are given a reason to celebrate thanks to a miracle. Family and friends come together to try and help Marlena get through her darkest hour. Knowing it is what John would have wanted, Paul and Andrew decide to go through with their wedding. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Thursday, June 5. Jack and Jennifer return to Salem. Holly and Tate aren't on the best of terms these days, but she's still there to offer him support. At long last, Chad and Kat stop playing games and finally go on a date. Like all mothers and daughters, Ari and Gabby find themselves butting heads. Doug once again finds himself turning to Leo as a confidant. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Friday, June 6. Kate begs Philip to wake up from the coma he's been in since Xander's beating. In preparation for the baby's arrival, Amy, Sophia, and Tate get a tour of the hospital. Carrie does what she can to help her mother. Jennifer is furious about Chad connecting with Kat and makes her displeasure known. This was another big week on Days of Our Lives, but I feel kind of bad for the rest of the stories, because how do you follow something as powerful as John's final days, or as game-changing as Xander's descent into brutality? Even EJ's shooting finally seems to be moving towards resolution, which makes storylines like Sophia's pregnancy and Ari's rebelliousness feel sadly less important in comparison. As callous as I think I can be, It's been tough getting through this week without letting days of our lives tug at my heartstrings. There was the way Marlena and Carrie clung to each other as Marlena sobbed. Kayla and Steve's tears by John's bedside. Eric, Will, Paul, Belle, Brady. All of them sitting vigil by John and thinking back to important moments in their lives. Those scenes are all the more powerful because of how real they feel. While Drake Hodgeston couldn't be with them to film those final scenes, I can't imagine how difficult it was to get through John's death, knowing his portrayer was fighting for his own life. And while it stings a bit to have to say goodbye to John bandaged up and unrecognizable, honestly, it comes full circle. That's exactly how he first appeared, nearly 40 years ago, as we saw in Steve's flashback. My stomach dropped a bit on Friday, though, after Marlena delivered the happy news about John's recovery and sent the kids home. I know what's coming, we all do, and saying he's on the road to recovery just before his death feels almost cruel. It's like watching a movie or reading a story you know well, and that you know will end in tragedy, but still hope irrationally that somehow, this time, it will be different. EJ's shooting was shunted to the back burner, while John, Bo, and Xander's attack on Philip all came to the fore. That's been a bit annoying as it just stalled. But then they wove them all together with EJ and Xander vying for the hospital, and finally have started getting back to the shooting. My money's still on Rachel. There's a reason she felt even more sick after telling her mommy about Johnny and EJ. I'm guessing that's because she's still holding the most crucial part in, that she shot Uncle EJ, and now that Kristen's blackmailed EJ into giving her mom back, I imagine he will be none too happy if it comes out Rachel did do it. It could even be enough to finally push him to drop the whole morals thing once again. Let's face it, he's already teetering there as it is. Xander and Maggie's confrontation was incredible, though all the more heartbreaking because even when Sarah wavered over the years, Maggie always had Xander's back. Until now. And while we can certainly debate whether she was too forgiving and enabling of Xander, their break is huge. They look at each other differently. They talk to each other differently. They threaten each other differently. Then there was the way Xander destroyed Victor's picture. It's a violent act to begin with, but he drove the knife in like he was stabbing someone. It was chilling. And while Sarah's months of lying may have driven me crazy, and she has a hand in things going so very sideways, I'm not in the Sarah's just as bad as Xander camp. Xander's actions are his own. Hypocrisy is an equivalent to violent rages. He tried to murder Brady and Philip before Sarah kept anything from him. And he didn't stop himself either of those times. Other things stopped him. As Maggie said, we all feel anger and even rage, but we don't act on it and try to kill / maim / destroy people's lives because of it. Hate what's happened, sure, but it feels like this was inevitable with how Xander's been written over the years. And it may finally be what's needed to get these backward slides to stop. Judging by his talk with Melinda about Victoria, I expect him to get even darker in the immediate future, but make no mistake that this is a genuine turning point. And it's one that Paul Telfer and Lindsay Godfrey insist is meant to stick. Marlena and Paul sit by John's bedside, only for Paul to abruptly stand and declare that this is all his fault for not insisting he go to the lab instead of his dad. As Marlena's talking him down, John manages to croak out a doc. Marlena and Paul rush back to his side, telling him he needs to heal for them. John gives Paul a thumbs up as we flash back to Paul asking if he can call John Dad. In the present, John whispers, "Proud to be your dad." Out in the hospital reception area, Brady fills Belle in on Rachel, then gripes about how much he hates having to have voted for EJ. But after Xander's arrest, he's still in shock at having to pick Belle's bow. Belle rolls her eyes at Brady's nonstop bashing of EJ, but insists she believes that despite EJ's horrendous past, she believes he's trying to change. Kristen and Rachel come out, and Belle heads off to let them catch up. Belle gives Sean a call to check in on Bo, and when she hangs up, Will's right there in the hospital with a HUD for her. He asks how Grandpa John is and tells Belle that Sammy and Sydney found another flight and will be here soon. They move on to talk about Ari being in town, and Will admits he wasn't thrilled about her coming here and missing graduation. Will heads in to see John, and Marlena greets him with a huge hug. "I miss you, Grandma." Paul gives Will a hug and asks how Sonny's doing. "Good, but he's dealing with work in Arizona." Will thanks him for getting John out of his captivity, and Paul and Marlena step out to give Will time with John. Rachel, meanwhile, wants to see Grandpa John to give him a card, but Brady doesn't think it's a good idea. "Mom told you, didn't she?" Rachel snaps as Brady's trying to talk her down. Just then, Johnny walks by behind them. As Kristen and Rachel wait for the elevator, Eric shows up. "Uncle Eric." Rachel runs happily into his arms and tells her uncle she wasn't allowed to see her grandpa. Kristen rushes her out. Eric heads over to Brady and Johnny. Then Paul and Marlena come out and fill them all in on John speaking. Belle joins them, and they all gather around to look at videos of Jude, while Johnny looks sadly on, then walks away. In John's room, Will takes a seat, and we flash back to John, telling his grandson how proud he is of him coming out. He fills John in on Ari and her rebellious streak, and how she's got a little John Black in her. Johnny joins them and greets his brother, where Will tells him he should talk to John. "You were always his favorite." Johnny isn't sure, but then Eric enters and gives him a hug. The three guys turn to John, and Eric sits down to pray while Johnny and Will leave. He tells John about how much of a father figure and role model he's always been. Brady sits down next and laments how John's firstborn has struggled so much. But he was always there to support Brady, no matter what. Brady's flashback is John giving his son a plaque from the gondola he and Isabella took just before her death in Venice. Brady thanks his dad for always keeping the memory of his mother alive. He wants to be the kind of dad that John's always been. Belle joins her brother, and they lament how hard it is to see their dad like that. It's not the first time, but neither can recall a rallying cry like this from friends and family. Belle sits vigil, remembering the time she sat by his hospital bedside years ago. John's finger twitches again, just like back then, and Belle insists that John will get through this just like then. "That's a fact." Tink. John gets out. Out in the hospital, Will asks Johnny what's up, and his brother tells him he admits, after finding out about his conception, he doesn't know where he fits in the family. "You're my brother," Will says. "That will never change, and Johnny can talk to him about anything he needs." Sonny calls, and Will offers to let it go, but Johnny insists he take it. Marlena walks over and tells Johnny he can join them all in the chapel if he'd like, and is thrilled to hear that her grandson and Channel are back together. "Your dad, any news there?" He tells Marlena about leaving EJ on the ground after his fall and feeling ashamed about it now. "It makes me feel like him." Marlena tells him he won't be. He'll make mistakes, good and bad choices, but they'll be his choices. Brady and Eric, meanwhile, ask Paul about his marriage to Andrew. It'll be in Salem, and Brady offers Eric as the officiant. Paul wants to celebrate John's recovery with a big Salem wedding. EJ's in the square gloating on the phone about owning the hospital when Eric dashes through and catches his eye. EJ takes the time to tell him all about his new morals and new hospital, but when Eric says Nicole isn't with him, EJ can't help but look a bit pleased at the thought that they're having problems. EJ then takes a seat in front of the Horton Monument to call Dr. Russell and set up a meeting to discuss their plans moving forward. When he gets up, he snaps at Tom and Alice to stop looking at him like that. He heads back over to the mansion, and Kristen and Rachel show up shortly after. Rachel begs her mom for some ice cream, but Kristen tells her to go upstairs and lie down. EJ tries being sympathetic at how hard this has been for Rachel. "It has," Kristen says, but Rachel's also confessed to witnessing something the night EJ was shot. "Oh dear," he finally utters. Rachel probably had a bad dream. Kristen insists they need to take it seriously. Rachel's got no evidence, but after Johnny badmouthing his dad left and right, she believes it. It's a shame he'll be going to prison. No, he won't be, EJ says. Neither Kristen nor Rachel will say a word. Kristen laughs, then asks how long he's known, but EJ won't admit anything. She'll keep Rachel quiet if Kristen gets her mom back. Marlena joins the kids out in the reception to tell them that she spoke with the burn specialist and pulmonologist, and his recovery seems to be absolutely miraculous. She tells them all to try to get some rest at home and some food. Paul and Belle try to convince Marlena to join them, but she's staying. Out in the square, Will needs to go visit Ari, but wants to talk to Johnny a bit more about him, not feeling like he's worthy to carry John's name. Will reassures his brother that he's pretty great and they hug, but Johnny looks suddenly worried. EJ agrees to Kristen's terms, but has his own demand. Rachel Blake will never set foot in Salem, or Kristen truly will never see her again. They shake before Stefano's photo, glaring into each other's eyes. Marlena lays happily next to John on the bed and tells him how nice it is to have him awake. She's happy to have some time alone, despite how wonderful it was to have all their loved ones there. No matter what obstacles we faced, we've always ended up together, my love. We flash back to Marlena and John, declaring their love together in front of the old fountain and making a wish before kissing. Marlena smiles happily, tears on her face as she gently kisses John's shoulder. Days of Our Lives spoilers suggest that although there are many flashbacks of Johnny DiMera pointing a gun at EJ DiMera, he is not the actual shooter. Fans assume, thanks to a leak weeks ago, that Rachel Black was truly the one who pulled the trigger on EJ. It seems that Rachel will set out to frame Johnny for the crime. Will she succeed? Rachel hasn't been seen much since the recast took place in April. However, the week of May 26 to 30, Rachel will be front and center with a story about the night EJ was shot. Rachel will tell Kristen DiMera that Johnny and EJ were fighting the night EJ was shot, and that Johnny had a gun. Kristen knows that EJ wants to protect his son and could very well use this to blackmail EJ into bringing Rachel Blake back home. Fans have known since the change in actress in the role of Rachel that she was going to be involved in EJ's shooting and the reveal. What exactly was Rachel's role? Fans already know from Rachel's birthday party that she doesn't have any friends. Of course, Rachel's attitude likely has a great deal to do with that. Suddenly, Rachel seems to be sweet and innocent as opposed to the girl who helped kidnap Ava Vitali. Is Rachel faking this whole new demeanor since she is in counseling to cover up her devious side? Rachel has been very manipulative for years now, especially when it comes to her parents. Perhaps Rachel has just gotten better at it in the last few months. Rachel obviously has manipulated both of her parents in the past, and that isn't likely to change anytime soon. Is Rachel far more like her mother than she should be? The recast and the rumors about Rachel's involvement came right after EJ's shooting. It is easy to believe that she was involved because of this. Of course, the fact that her grandmother is missing would pit Rachel against EJ just as much as her mother is. Could Rachel have shot EJ because he wouldn't be her grandmother back home? Rachel is obviously playing her mother in the preview clip, and of course, Kristen is falling for it. Brady Black is a bit more leery when it comes to what Rachel is capable of. However, Rachel has run Chloe Lane away from her father. Rachel has pushed Ava to the point of leaving town as well. Could Rachel be a carbon copy of her mother? Perhaps Rachel is a bit worse. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Friday, May 30, indicate some major moments as Salem heads into the weekend. There will be a family reunion under sad circumstances, while loved ones say goodbye to someone special, and a sister takes her brother to task. What's set to unravel on Friday's show? Time to find out. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Friday, May 30, suggest a full-on family reunion for the Blacks, as Will Horton returns to Salem. It sounds like things will get very emotional between Will and his grandmother, Marlena Evans, who will be very happy to see him. Read this. Days of Our Lives star Christy Clark talks heartbreaking Salem return. With that said, will he have a chance to see Gaby Hernandez at some point so they can talk about their daughter, Ariana Ari Horton? Will may have his plate full with saying goodbye to his grandfather, John Black. However, there might be more to the story regarding Ari's return to Salem. Speaking of John, Brady Black, Belle Black, Eric Brady, and Paul Narita will each take a turn by their father's bedside. It sounds like fans may want to grab a tissue for these scenes. Is this an official goodbye to John Black? Lastly, Days of Our Lives spoilers for Friday hint that Kristen DiMera will take her brother DiMera to task. Rachel Black recently confided in her mom about how she heard Johnny DiMera fighting with her uncle the night he was shot. Rachel has been acting odder than usual since her birthday party, and fans have been buzzing at the thought that she may have shot But is the child smart enough to manipulate her mom into thinking Johnny did it? Kristen will be very upset at the thought of Johnny pulling a stunt like this with her daughter in the house, but also the thought that Rachel saw it all. Kristen could scold about covering for Johnny, but would she have a leg to stand on? Then again, Kristen could use Rachel's conversation to get to bring home her mom, Rachel Blake, if she blackmails him. In related news, Johnny will feel more alone than ever. With these feelings, will he do something drastic? What storyline are you most interested in seeing unfold during Friday's show? Share your thoughts. Tune into the Peacock Soap Daily so you don't miss a moment of the drama, and visit SOS often for the best Days of Our Lives spoilers, updates, and news. Days of Our Lives spoilers for Monday, June 2. Find Marlena sticking by John's side for what she knows will be the end, even though she told their child he would be making a miraculous recovery. Marlena sent Brady, Belle, Will, Paul, and Eric to get some rest, so she could cuddle up with John up until his last moments. We've had the flashbacks. We've had the false hopes. Now it's time to say goodbye. Steve and Kayla may not be John's family exactly. Well, their nephew, Sean, was married to John's daughter, Belle, and their nephew, Sonny, is married to John's step-grandson, Will, and, well, you get the idea. The point is, they are family in every way that counts, and they're going to miss John too, which means more flashbacks. Meanwhile, Hope, Sean, and Sierra are gathered at Beau's bedside. He is fighting for his life too. His version of Limbo is Horton Square deserted, except for a mysterious figure. Get those tissues ready as Beau meets his late son, Zach. On the one hand, it's good news. It suggests that your loved ones aren't gone forever, and everybody will be reunited eventually. On the other hand, it makes death seem a lot more attractive. Beau has been fighting hard to stay with his wife and children, but if he knows they'll all find him someday down the line, and in the meantime, he can spend time with the much-missed Zach, is he still going to want to stay tethered to the Salem mortal coil? Days of Our Lives spoilers for the week of June 2 to 6, 2025 tease the end of an era and a new beginning. The week will start off with tragedy when Marlena stays by John's side until his final moments. The rest of the week will be filled with grief and memories as Salem learns about John's death. Despite the heartbreaking loss, midweek, Paul and Andrew will decide to move forward with their wedding plans. The couple got engaged late last year, and even though Paul's dad won't be there to celebrate their big day, he'll be there in spirit as his son begins his happily ever after. Later in the week, Jack and Jennifer will return to Salem. They haven't been home since Thanksgiving when Doug passed away, and now they'll be back to remember another legendary Salemite. Amidst all the heartbreak, Stephanie may be on the receiving end of some good news, or is it? Her manuscript for her spicy romance novel is about to be passed around thanks to a sly Alex, and against her wishes, and no one's forgotten about Beau. On Monday, Beau will reunite with his late son Zach, played by Brandon Butler. Will Zach welcome his dad to the other side, or assure him it's not his time yet? Xander, unfortunately, gave in to his worst instincts on Days of Our Lives when he beat his brother, Philip, within an inch of his life. Trying to prevent that was exactly Sarah's reason for not telling him that Philip had used a forged letter to obtain half of Victor's inheritance. Xander isn't ruled by logic, but often falls prey to his inner darkness. While losing Sarah's love might be high on his list of things to worry about, there's one thing he fears more than that. Paul Telfer sat down with Soap Opera Digest to dive deep into Xander's psyche. He explained that his character doesn't fear physical violence or even going to prison. Rather, he remarked that Xander is deathly afraid of being returned to what he sees he is, which is this outcast, black sheep thug, which he finds absolutely terrifying. He noted that for Xander, when the going gets tough, he reverts to his base instincts and often reacts in a feral way. After having gone through the pain of reconnecting with his mother, Fiona, only to lose her after she covered up a drunk driving incident that nearly killed his wife, Sarah. He worries that his actions may have also cost him his only remaining mother figure, Maggie. Maggie was married to Xander's father, Victor, who died in a plane crash in August 2023. Telfer further explained that Xander's violence against Philip could cause him to lose Maggie. The character finds it difficult not to act on his worst impulses and slipping into his old behaviors. With all the loss he suffered, and now that Sarah's thrown him out of the house, Xander's got a lot of work to do. Finding that he's left with no one to help rein in his misbehavior when things go south, Xander must figure out how to navigate life and his emotions moving forward. Maybe that's an opportunity to finally show that he has grown up, he mused. Poor Rachel, she knows what she saw the night of EJ's shooting. She witnessed Johnny and EJ fighting, and Johnny had a gun. She already confessed this to her mom, and in the Friday, May 30 episode of Days of Our Lives, she guesses that her dad also knows. Kristen also tells EJ and uses that information to her advantage. In addition, more family members return to support John and Marlena. Johnny is clearly struggling, and thankfully he was able to talk to Marlena and a visiting Will about what he's going through. He even told Marlena about leaving his father lying on the ground in the middle of Horton Town Square. He felt ashamed for doing that because it made him feel like his father. Meanwhile, Rachel and Kristen were still at the hospital. Rachel wanted to visit John, but Brady and Kristen didn't feel she should just yet. Unfortunately for Rachel, Johnny ran into them carrying sweet bits for the family, and things instantly grew awkward. Rachel seemed scared of Johnny and didn't respond to his fist bump or anything. But Brady just explained away her reaction to Johnny. He didn't tell him why Rachel was cold and distant with him. Rachel's reaction to Johnny was right in line with what she said she witnessed. She was a bit fearful of him, and later, she looked oddly at EJ too. Will she talk about exactly what she heard father and son talking about that night, or should we just assume? At the DiMera mansion, Kristen pounced on EJ and used what Rachel knew to her advantage. She told EJ she would ensure Rachel stays quiet about what she saw that night under one condition. He would tell her where her mom was. Ultimately, EJ made a deal with his sister. He would tell her as long as the woman never returned to Salem. If she did, he would make sure she never saw Rachel Blake again. Kristen agreed, and they shook with Stefano's portrait in the background. So EJ DiMera 1.0 was still rumbling under the surface. He went nowhere. He may be protecting his son, but he will still get down and dirty when he wants. And don't think we didn't notice him calling Dr. Russell about meeting with him about the Versavex. Yes, as we expected, Brady broke the tie, voting for EJ because Xander got hauled off to the police precinct for attacking Philip. Will and Eric returned to Salem, and their first visit was to John, who's apparently getting better. Although Eric managed to run into EJ already, check out some Friday images of John's family being there for him by his bedside. We have one burning question. Once Philip wakes up, do you think he'll go after Xander, Or do you think he'll do the exact opposite and prevent Xander from having to do any jail time? We are always happy to see flashbacks on soaps, and though we're unhappy about the reason for them on Days of Our Lives, John's inevitable death, Carrie's reminiscing with Marlena about how, even though she is Anna and Roman's biological child, Marlena and John are the ones who actually raised her, reminded us of other times a soap opera kid has ended up with a completely different set of parents. Roman only met Carrie when she was 4 years old, and her presumed dead mother, Anna, turned up in Salem. Anna handed the little girl over to Roman and Marlena to raise. Then Roman died, and Carrie ended up primarily in Marlena's care. Then Marlena met John, who was determined to be Roman. Then Marlena died, and Carrie, along with Sammy and Eric, grew up with their single dad, Roman/John. Then Marlena came back, and she had Roman with her, but Carrie was grown by then. So like she told Marlena at John's bedside, she is more Marlena and John's daughter than anyone else's. Follow closely, this one is tricky. Leslie grew up in the shadow of her sister, Lori, on The Young and the Restless. Lori was in love with Lance. But one night, when Lori and Lance were on the outs, Lance slept with Leslie. Leslie became pregnant, but Lori and Lance had reunited by then, so Lance's brother, Lucas, stepped up and pretended to be the baby's father. When the baby was born, he was shockingly not named something that started with the letter L. He was named Brooks after his mother's maiden name. But when Brooks was still a baby, Leslie had a nervous breakdown, and Lori took over raising him. Brooks thought of Lori as his mother and Lucas as his father. He was wrong in both cases. Justin dumped Jackie before knowing she was pregnant. Jackie gave birth to a baby boy she gave up for adoption. Coincidentally, in the same hospital, Alan's wife, Elizabeth, had just given birth to a stillborn infant. What luck, Alan thought, and scooped up baby Philip, without bothering to mention that detail to Elizabeth. Years later, Jackie came to Springfield to reclaim Philip, and ended up marrying Alan to do it, while Justin married Elizabeth to pretty much achieve the same thing. When Elizabeth found out the truth about her son, she fled to Europe, leaving custody to Jackie and Justin. Alan wasn't pleased. Philip asked to live with his step-parents, the newly reunited Jackie and Justin. Alan really wasn't pleased. Much drama ensued. Days of Our Lives sees that little Rachel Black is hiding something huge. And in fact, her confession to her mom, Kristen DiMera, is just the tip of the iceberg. Will the schoolgirl deliberately set up her cousin, Johnny DiMera, to go down for E.J. DiMera's shooting? Kind of looks that way. So, after Rachel spilled tea about Johnny waving a gun at his papa E.J., we saw Rachel telling her mom that she thinks E.J. deserved to get shot for taking her namesake grandma, Rachel Blake, away from her. But Kristen is trying to dial back her psycho daughter, you know. And even though Rachel didn't seem initially like she was looking to get Johnny into trouble, she may change her mind, or she's being very clever and laying groundwork, planting seeds. So Rachel told Kristen she went back upstairs, went to bed after seeing E.J. and Johnny argue. And Rachel was very clear that she did not hear a gunshot. But this kid is Kristen Jr. in every way, and I'm betting she's a little liar. So Jetta Hunter and Belle Black just had a chat about E.J.'s would-be killer still being at large. And Jada was talking to Belle about Ava Vitali being off the grid and out of Salem after dumping Melinda Trask's handgun. But it seems like neither of them really think Ava shot E.J., and I doubt it as well. Of course, many fans have different ideas about who pulled the trigger. And of course, it was Gabby Hernandez and Kristen who were the first two seriously questioned by the Salem PD. But there wasn't enough evidence to arrest either of these divas, and Johnny remains hostile towards his dad, E.J., over the sexual assault of his mom, Sammy Brady. Now, Hurricane Sammy herself is in the clear because she wasn't in town, and Johnny's wife, Channel Dupree, and Grandpa, Roman Brady, actually suspect Johnny is the shooter. So lots of things happening, all pointing towards him. Both Channel and Roman believe Johnny confronted EJ with the gun he took from the Brady pub. They know Johnny was upset the night EJ was attacked on Days. Plus, the most important thing is that Johnny is at the top of the shooting suspect list in EJ's mind, because he only has these partial and scattered memories he's recovered since coming out of that medically induced coma. So, as of now, it seems like the person who knows the most about events that night that EJ was shot is little Rachel. And she may be doing something devious to make Johnny out to be the culprit, which aligns with what EJ fears is true, at least at the moment. So, several months ago, our leaker, who has themselves an inside source at Days of Our Lives, told me that Rachel is responsible for shooting EJ. And I actually got grilled by the Days PR office when I first made a video about the leak a while back, which is kind of interesting. And now recent episodes show Rachel acting strange, and she abruptly left her Mad Hatter tea party to go to bed. She told Kristen, EJ, and Brady that she was too tired, but we know it had to do with the conversation turning to EJ's shooting. Attempted murder, isn't exactly appropriate small talk for a child's party, but it is the DiMeras that we're talking about, so probably not the first time. And it was strange because Rachel refused to even stick around long enough to finish opening her birthday gifts. Said she didn't want to unwrap them the next day. What kid does that? So, Days of Our Lives' recent episode had Kristen checking in with Rachel, talking to her about Grandpa John Black's accident and what's going on with him. And Rachel told worried mom Kristen that she's had a tummy ache ever since her birthday party. So maybe Rachel's feeling queasy over the stress and guilt of shooting her uncle EJ. Maybe Kristen now knows that Johnny and EJ were fighting the night of the shooting. And according to Rachel, that woke her up. She said when she peeked, Johnny was waving a handgun at his dad. And EJ remembers Johnny holding a gun that night. But there's more memories in EJ's adult brain that just haven't come back yet. So this week, Roman told Kate he thinks Johnny's lying about what went down that night. But a lot of Days fans also know Johnny's heart is in the right place. He's one of the few good DiMeras, along with Chad DiMera. And you remember when EJ fell in town square because he's unsteady and using a cane. Johnny's knee-jerk reaction was to run over and help his dad, and he had to pull himself back because he's still mad. So, even given all that, Rachel and Kristen are probably going to wind up pointing fingers at Johnny. At the moment, Kristen wants to keep all this quiet. She told Brady what their daughter Rachel said, and he wanted to just go tell the cops, tell his sister, Belle, because she's DA. But Kristen reminded him CPS is keeping a close eye on them, and EJ's shooting is itself a problem. They don't want to exacerbate it. Kristen and Brady both know any hint of scandal, wrongdoing, or an unsafe environment, they're going to lose custody of Rachel. So Brady agreed with Kristen that for now they'll stay quiet about what Rachel claims she saw. I'm not going to say she did see it because I think there's more to this story. So the kid's keeping quiet, and even when Sarah Horton checked out her achy tummy at the hospital, Rachel didn't say anything to the doc. So here's what we're probably looking at soon. Kristen is now feeling certain that Johnny shot EJ, so she's gotten that in her back pocket. But I also think Rachel's telling a half-truth. I do think she saw Johnny and EJ arguing, and he did hold a gun on his dad. But if our leaker's right, Johnny laid down the gun and walked out disgusted, didn't fire a shot, and little Rachel didn't go back to bed. She picked up the gun, told EJ she knows he did a bad thing to her grandma Rachel, and then shot him. So far, everything our leaker has told me has been unfolding. So it aligns. We'll see. I'm still feeling real good about this leak. Rachel now has laid the groundwork for Johnny to go down for her crime by telling her mom, Kristen, about the fight. More on this is going to shift, but the next week is going to be focused on the funeral of John and Bo Brady's miraculous recovery and return. And then Days of Our Lives spoilers offer previews about a big summer trial. Looks like there's going to be some red herrings, people exonerated, somebody convicted. Johnny initially is probably going to be accused, but Kristen's going to find out the truth about what Rachel did.